in my throat. So I've been a little worried about this today because I start coughing and stuff. And I don't want to do that.
Water.
Take a sip of water right now. So yeah, I'm very glad to be here. I haven't had a chance to talk about these things for a long time. I retired 23 years ago. And I'm still in close contact with all the people out at Coloma at the state park there. In fact, I'm going there this October for the living history event. I'm going to be playing music out there with friends of mine that they'd love to dress up and come out. So we're all looking forward to that. And well, let me tell you a little bit about myself first. I had a good beginning because I was raised by two historians. One was a professor of history, and the other was a trained naturalist. So natural history and human history in one house. And that's what I've stuck to all my life. I still am a fan, or a fanatic, I guess would be a better word, of natural plants, native plants. And I'm a very strong foe of all of the alien plants, which are taking over the state. But I'm not going to give a talk about that. Just thought I'd let you know. My father was a renowned professor of California history, Spanish period, at a prestigious university in this state. And my mother was a housewife because that's what you did back then in the 1930s and 40s when she got started. She later blossomed, came in contact with an international group called the Pan American Roundtable that had members from all the way from Canada clear down to Chile. And she was quite active in that and had a small bit of fame from it. So I'm all proud of her. They're all gone, of course, long ago. I grew up in a house with a lot of music. There was a piano in there and a guitar and a mandolin. And my oldest sister played the piano, and she became a concert pianist, and still is, even though she's in her mid-80s now. And my next sister down, she didn't go into music much until she was 50 years old, and then she got all excited about bluegrass, which I am too, and you are too. And so she formed her own bluegrass band with her husband. And they wound up playing all over. They made records and concerts. They even wound up playing once at the big do at San Francisco called the Hardly Strictly Bluegrass Festival. They got on the big stage there. So I'm all proud of her too. And then my younger sister, she played some dulcimer, which was fine for her, but she really used her voice. She developed her voice to a high degree. And she still does the same, especially church songs. She goes into the churches when they're all full of people, and she just leads it. So that's a lot of fun. So that's my background there. I was happy to be able to carry those two subjects that I had learned so well, natural history and human history, into a career, because that's what state parks does. They have state parks and they have state historic parks. And I got to do both of those. I started out at Grover Hot Springs up in the mountains, and then I came down to Coloma, and I liked Coloma so well I never left. Stayed there until I retired. So I'm going to sing you some Gold Rush songs today. I'm going to explain about each one as we go. You may be wondering why I brought this old beat-up guitar. Well, it's because I'm very proud of it. This was a gift to me when I was 16 from the great Warren White, who was a guitar maker in San Francisco. And he built this for me and signed it inside. And I've treasured it ever since, and I'm not ashamed of it at all. So it looks bad, but it still sounds pretty good. Oh, do you remember sweet Betsy from Pike, who crossed the broad prairie with her lover Ike? 2 yoke of oxen, big spotted hog, tall Shanghai rooster, and an old yellow dog. Hoodle dang faulty died, oh hoodle dang faulty day. Ace. See, my memory's going out. What did I tell you? I was afraid this would happen. I'll have to jump around here.
One morning,
quite early, they camped on the Platte. That's right. It was near by a cool, shady flat. Betsy, sore-footed, lay down to repose. Long Ike stood and gazed at his Pike County rose. Hoodle dang faulty died, oh hoodle dang faulty day. The wagon tipped over with a terrible crash, and all out on the prairie rolled all sorts of trash. A few little baby clothes done up with care looked mighty suspicious, but 'twas all on the square. Hoodle dang faulty died, oh hoodle dang faulty day. Got to do the one about Betsy. We'll get to that later. I'm very sorry. I'm nervous. I admit it, I'm nervous. I haven't done this in a long time. I wanted to tell you about Betsy running around the campsite without any clothes on. That's the best part. I can't remember how that started. And they say it's true. People have studied this song and they say, you know, that's a very accurate depiction of the Gold Rush Trail. Well, one morning they climbed up a very high hill and with wonder looked down into old Placerville. Ike shouted and jumped 2 feet clear of the ground, said, Betsy, my darling, we've come to Hangtown. Hoodle dang faulty died, oh hoodle dang faulty day. Long Ike and sweet Betsy attended a dance. Ike wore a pair of his Pike County pants. Sweet Betsy was covered in ribbons and rings. Said Ike, you're an angel, but where are your wings? A miner said, Betsy, will you dance with me? I will, you old horse, if you don't make too free, but don't dance me hard. Do you want to know why? Doggone you, I'm chock full of strong alkali. Hoodle dang faulty died, oh hoodle dang faulty day. Long Ike and sweet Betsy got married, of course, but Ike, getting jealous, obtained a divorce. And Betsy, well satisfied, said with a shout, goodbye, you big lummox, I'm glad you backed out. Hoodle dang faulty died, oh hoodle dang faulty day. So there's a lot of good history in that song, including the ending. A lot of people don't know that women's liberation started here in California in a big way. And the reason was because in the very beginning, women were completely outnumbered by all the men. And so you couldn't start messing around, doing wrong things with a woman because she'd just leave. She'd go find somebody better. That's what happened to Betsy. And
what was Ike from?
Oh, good question. That's one thing I wanted to tell you. Yeah, a lot of people ask that question. I didn't know myself until I was researching for this program.
What was the question?
What's Pike?
Betsy from Pike.
Betsy from Pike. And you hear Pike all the time. Yeah, I did want to talk about that, so I'm glad you asked. Pike is Pike County, Missouri. A lot of people think Pike County, Kentucky. No, it's Missouri. And you don't know why? It's because it was on the west side of the Mississippi River.
Oh.
And really the first American settlement on the west side of the Mississippi River of any consequence. And because it was there, it led to the gold rush. Because when you wanted to go to California with a wagon and your oxen and your animals and your family and everything you owned, you didn't have to start by crossing one of the biggest rivers in the world. You were already on the other side. So the pikers, as they were called, and still are, they got here first. because they didn't have to find some way to cross that huge river with all of this equipment. There certainly were no bridges. There were no bridges in the world that big, that long in those days. I don't think. Were there? You would know. This is my wife Celeste.
There wasn't.
So yeah, that's what pike is, and the pikers got here first, and so you hear the word pike a lot in some of these songs because they're about the beginning of the gold rush. There were a lot of pikers here from Pike County, Missouri. Well,
Well, the other reason that liberation started here for women is because California was the first state to allow a woman to own property in her name.
I'm for that.
So that's why they were able to start boarding houses, hotels, laundromats, and bakeries. And they didn't have to put it in a man's name.
And it's still going on very much today, would you agree? Women have a higher status in this state than probably any place else in the world. Can you hear me okay without this?
No.
Not quite? Okay, then I'll stick with it. Let's see. I want to start with a typical song from the early gold rush, which of course was 1849. The gold was discovered, as probably everybody here knows, you're all locals, was discovered in January of 1848. But the year 1848 was when the Californios descended upon the rivers and sandbanks up here in the foothills. Later in the year, there were some travelers from Oregon, because you know the Oregon Trail had brought thousands of Americans out there to mine not to mine, to farm in the Willamette Valley, one of the most fertile places on the planet. And so they heard about the gold, and they were down here a couple of months later. So they were first. The next group was from Hawaii. Why? Well, because it didn't take so long to sail a ship out there for people to get all excited and climb back in the ship and come back to San Francisco. So the second group from outside was from Oregon. Can you guess what the third group was? I bet you can't, unless you read about it. Who were the next people from outside of California to enter California?
Chinese.
What?
Chile.
Chileans. Good. You already know. Somebody back there. Good for you. Good for you. That's exactly right. Chile. I go, what? Chile? Why? That's the other side of the world. Yeah, but you know why? It's because they had a port. Mexico had no ports. Central America had no ports. Chile has a port the size of San Francisco Bay, and it's at the same latitude, south as we are north. It's a beautiful place. I've never gotten that far in my travels, but I know about it. And because it was a port, it was full of ships, and because it was a port, the people there tended to be more wealthy. They had more possessions. They were able to leave. So they just took over those ships and started north. So there was a big influx of Chileans in early 1849. And the Americans didn't get here until the summer of 1849. And they found the gold fields overrun with Chileans. We'll talk a little more about that later, because I have something about that to tell you. Good, I can still see you all. This is just an early song from the Gold Rush. It's one of the earliest ones I could find. It was written by a guy named Old Put. How many know about Old Put? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. That was his pen name. His real name was John Stone. And like many men, he came out here to mine for gold. And like most men, he was not strong enough. He didn't have the stamina, he didn't have the muscle He didn't even have the size. I would have failed at it. A lot of strong-looking men failed at it. They just couldn't work that hard. It's the hardest work known to man. I mean, you dig a hole straight down 20 feet deep and maybe 20 feet wide. Just that. But then you have to go through all of the sand and gravel that you dug out of that hole and see if it has any gold in it. Most of the gold will be at the bottom, of course, because of its weight. So there were a lot of people like John Stone. He changed his name to Old Put, and he became a songwriter and a song singer. He was what we would call today a singer-songwriter. And the singing of songs happened on Saturday night. Why? Because the men worked hard all day from sunrise, which in the summer would be what, 4 in the morning, 4:30? All through the day until the sun went down at night, 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. You just kept working. And so they were totally exhausted. They took Sundays off. They respected the Sabbath. But they threw in Saturday night. They took off on Saturday night, they had a nice dinner, and then they went into town, whatever the town was. Usually a small little place. And there was a tent there, a good-sized tent for entertainment purposes. Coloma had one. I know Placerville had several. I'm not quite sure where they were. But so entertainment would be provided, and some of these men, like Old Put, found out that his songs would be appreciated. And the singer started writing songs about the gold rush, and that's why I'm here tonight. I want to tell you about that. So here's one of his early songs. This is just about how the gold rush got started. All of these songs are parodies. I hope you all know what that word means. I assume you do. That's a common word. The advantage of a parody is that the person listening to the song already knows the tune. I don't know about you, but when I hear a new song, I listen to the music first. That song can go all the way through. I have no idea what it was about. I see a few smiles, and other people have that experience too. Well, if you have a parody, you already know the music. You already know how the tune goes. So you can listen to the words right away, which is important because they're only going to hear that song one time. And if it's funny or interesting or informative. So this is one of Old Put's songs. Nobody knows why he called himself Old Put. Oh, I should also tell you, he lived up on top of Mount Murphy. You know where that is? Just outside of Coloma. You see that big peak up there? You look up there real close, you can see a bunch of giant boulders right on the top. And the lore is that John Stone somehow pushed them together to the point where he could put a cloth of some kind over the top, and he lived inside those boulders on top of Mount Murphy for many years. I took my shovel, pick and pan, and went to mining like a man. I picked up chunks that weighed a pound, lay like biscuits on the ground. Get out the way, I'm mad as fury. Get out the way, get out the way, don't make me worry. I'm from Pike, Missouri. I love the devil was the pay, the miner paid from every way, with sticks and tools to take the blame. But the lady went out with that shame. Get out the way, don't make me worry. Get out the way, I'm in a hurry. Get out the way, I'm mad as fury. I'm from Pike, in a kind of weak way. It's not a concert. If you like to clap, that's fine. I'm happy with that. If you don't want to, I'm not expecting it. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Well, most of us could not hear the song lyrics because
Turn on your microphone.
Turn down the black guitar.
Okay.
Turn it on.
Both.
Let's see, which one is it?
Lower guitar one.
needs a mix.
Okay, this is the guitar, so turn way down. I'll turn this just up to where it starts to squeal. Not squealing now. Happy birthday to you. Can you hear both of them now?
It's just too loud.
It's just still too loud.
Turn the sound off, I think we can hear the guitar without the mic.
Okay. Still on. So that's the guitar.
That's what I thought before.
Oh, they must be mixing.
I don't think you need a mic for the guitar.
You know what? Can I just do it this way?
Yeah.
All right. By the way, I'd love to have your questions if you have them as we go.
And you could redo that song, I think, if you wanted to, because we couldn't hear the lyrics.
Well, I'll tell you what. I've got a bunch of songs here.
Okay.
So if you don't mind, I'm just going to put you on the head. This is kind of a good one. I like this one. It's a lot of these songs were parodies. The song, I mean, the music was a parody. People would recognize the music. So sometimes the person writing the song would pick a subject that's just almost the opposite of what the original was about. Just for the humor of it, you know, for the punch of that idea. This song, sure, some of you know it. It's a long time ago, the early 19th century. It was called "Oft in the Stilly Night," and it was this mournful, lonesome song about being all alone in a house in the middle of the night. And it always sounds like he's up on the top story, laying in bed. Maybe there's some people sleeping downstairs, but they don't make any noise. There's no traffic, of course. There's no sound at all. Just complete silence. And you wake up in the middle of the night, and you start thinking about the older times. You start thinking about your youth and the people you used to know. Oh, I've got a verse over here. The guy's name was Thomas Moore. He was a famous poet and a songwriter from the early 19th century. Oft in the stilly night, when slumbers... Right again. Oft in the stilly night, when slumber's chains hath bound me, fond memory brings the light of other days around me. The smiles, the tears of boyhood years, the words of love then spoken, the eyes that shone, now dimmed and gone, the cheerful hearts now broken. Thus in the stilly night, when slumber's chains hath bound me. I should give you the tune, the last part. Thus in the stilly night, when slumber's chains have bound me, fond memory brings the light of other days around me. So you see, it's a very poignant song. It makes you withdraw and think about personal things. Well, this fellow's name was Mark Taylor. He's my favorite writer of Gold Rush songs. Boy, does he twist it around. Maybe about there. Same tune. Parody. Okay, here we go. I'm sad and lonely here, though joy and wealth surround me. I dare not speak for fear some fighting man
I mind Becky Jane. I'm sad and lonely here, though joy and wealth surround me. I dare not speak for fear some fighting man may pound me. I long have looked for gold, but little have I found. I swear that I've been had, for it's not there in the ground. Were I there now, I'd gladly plow, yes, hoe or husk the corn, or even milk that brindle cow who kicks so in the morn. I'm sad and lonely here, though joy and wealth surround me. I dare not speak for fear some fighting man may pound me. So you get the joke, right? I mean, it's this song about tenderness and sorrow and loneliness, and then the parody is about it's about missing your home so much and being mistreated so badly, and this line about I live in fear that some man would pound me. That's something men don't say. We don't. We can't say that. You're called a coward if you say that. I'm a little guy, and I've had to, I've never had to apologize for anything, but I've seen the big guys around me just wanting to fight all the time. They don't tolerate cowardice. But you can't mention it either. That's what my point here. I'm going to do this one just because my friends Sherry and blah.
Joyce and Jim.
Joyce and Jim. See, I don't even know my friends' names.
It's okay.
Oh, they're nice. I was up at the Bluegrass Festival last June, and I ran into a couple of people from Placerville. I didn't see my friends here, but Hugh and Sherry Hoger. I bet some of you know Hugh and Sherry Hoger. Anyway, they were there, so we started jamming. You jam in the campground. You listen, you go over to the stage and listen to music if you want to, but most of it is in the campground. Just jamming, playing music with friends, or with strangers. And I met Hugh and Sherry, and I told them about doing this program, and they said, oh, well, let's hear a little bit of it. So I did one or two, and then I came to this one in a little tablet I had, and I said, now here's one I've never been able to do, because I just can't make it work. And Hugh was like, oh, but let's hear it. Come on, do it right away. And I couldn't play with the guitar because there was too many instruments around me. So I just sang it. Kind of like this. I pitched my tent on this campground, few days, to give old Satan another round, and I am going home. And Hugh was like, oh, that's perfect, that's wonderful, just do it that way all the time from now on. So this is the first trial out. After that, you can maybe tell it's a parody of a hymn, or of at least a church song. I can't stay in these diggings, few days, Lord, I can't stay in these diggings, and I'm going home. You get the double meaning? A few more days of wind and rain, few days, a few more days of suffering and pain, and I am going home. I can't stay here in these diggings, few days, Lord, I can't stay here in these diggings, and now I'm going home. Those banking thieves I will not trust, few days, but with me take my little dust, 'cause I'm going home, and I can't stay in these diggings. Oh, few days, Lord, I can't stay here in these diggings. And now I'm going home. I'll leave this world of rags and dirt. Few days, and wear a plug and ruffled shirt. And I am going home. Oh, won't I have some high old times? Few days. I'm telling yarns about the mines, and I am going home. I can't stay in these diggings. Few days, Lord, I can't stay in these diggings, and I am going home. So consider the impact that would have if you knew the hymn. You sang it every Sunday, and all of a sudden you heard this parody of it. Thanks for coming. Catch up with you later. That's my friend Jacob. Here's another interesting parody. I think these guys tried to find the farthest away parody meaning that they could. And this is Mark Taylor again. It seems to me he made up a whole new meaning for the word miss. But you'll see what I mean. The song, it was another sentimental song, very sentimental by our standards, because we never asked this question. Do they miss me at home? Well, of course, we don't even wonder about that. It's a phone call away. Or you can see them on your smartphone while you talk to them. It's instant communication. The other side of the world, right now, no problem. But think about that. It might only be, 15 miles away on some big project that was too far away from the post office. And you sit there alone in the evening and you think, boy, I miss them. I wonder if they miss me. Well, I wonder if they miss me at home. And the original song asks questions like, do they miss my voice when they're singing together? Things like that. So, Mark Taylor made a parody out of that. Do they miss me at home? Do they miss me? It would be an assurance most deep to know that the friends who did trust me were saying, I wish he were here. To know that the people I swindled are ignorant now where I roam. Oh yes, joy beyond measure to know that they miss me at home, to know that they miss me at home. The merchant, the butcher, the baker have filled up their books with my name, and even the village shoemaker against me has a long-standing claim. And then there's old Regan, my tailor, who done me so long for his pay. And Jimmy O'Brien, the jailer, I'm glad to be out of their way. I'm glad to be out of their way. The bankers who loan me their money on sureties made by myself, they must think it remarkably funny to miss me and with me their pelf. But now they had better be civil and bleed someone else in their turn, for I'm sure it would trouble the devil whereabouts ever to learn, my whereabouts daughter I courted while I built up a bill at his store. If stories are true, now reported, he'll follow me all the land north. What last him I'd reach California and buy a new name I have known. And neither no judge nor attorney will catch me and judge me at home. Will catch me and judge me at home. That's not an exaggeration, by the way. It was perfectly easy to lose yourself very completely in 1849, and even the beginning of 1850. That lasted until statehood kicked in late 1850. But there are a lot of stories about that. People wanted to change their name. Who would know? You just go to a different town where you've never been seen before. You call yourself anything you like and totally get away with it. I guess the only reason I wanted to do this is because I thought a lot of you might know Teddy and Al Wolterbeek. Remember them?
Yep.
They used to be involved in folk dancing and square dancing and contra dancing.
They still are.
Still are? Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. I lost track of them years ago. Very good. Well, the reason I brought this song along was because of a friend of mine. I used to play with her. She was called. Her name was Dorothy Hawkinson, and she could play the fiddle so sweet, and so right on the pitch, and so perfect in time. She was just wonderful to work with. So she and I, we formed a duet, and for a few years we played together. I showed her this song. It's a song by Stephen Foster. Sure you all know that. He wrote lots and lots of songs, and he was alive during the gold rush. It was kind of getting started. His better days were later. But he had written this one, Miss, Nellie Bly. Couldn't remember the name. So this is Old Put again, living up on top of Mount Murphy there. He wrote this about. Well, he just used that. He used that tune to come up with this. Miss Ella, she is 29, has taken 2 degrees. Tore her short tail off behind so she can show her knee. Miss Ella, she's a gallant stag. Miss Ella, she is neat. Her eyes look like a saffron bag and more than one off the feet. Take the time, Miss Ella, take the time, Miss Ella, do. And I will rock the cradle and give all the yore to you. I forgot to tell you the punchline, which is that Dorothy fell in with Teddy and Al and the other group in that dance club. Was it the club? Anyway, for some reason she had this song in her head. I had showed it to her and she could remember it. She sang it to the dance club and they all went, "Oh, that's great, that is so good, I love that, how's that go?" And they all memorized it. And since then, the last I heard, you may know this, Joyce, they're still singing it. They're still.
I'll ask Teddy when they see it.
I'll jump to the last verse. Miss Ella, what's deep? Miss Ella has a claim, they say she works it all the while. She creviced around the other day and panned out a little pile. She'll get it all after a while if patiently she waits. 'Cause I'll leave her when I make my pile. Travels for the States. favorite of all. This is Mark Taylor again. I told you about how much I like him. Don't know much about him, but he sure could write a song. Better than Old Foot any day. This is a parody of a song I never heard. It's called The Landlord's Pet. But it's a great tune anyway. And I must admit, I like this so well, I haven't changed it. It was awkwardly written, I thought. By the way, I should mention that some of these songs were published during the gold rush. There was a printing press in Yuba City, and they would go up there with their work all written out, and they'd have them, typeset and printed. Our local library has a copy of Old Foot's songs, maybe 50 songs. I don't know, a lot. So that's where this came from. It was anyway, I thought it was awkwardly written. It was like two-line verse and a two-line chorus, over and over and over. So it was like 10 verses long song. So I just collapsed it. I made it a 4-line verse, which is standard now, and a 2-line chorus. Worked out fine. A couple other changes too. Anyway. Can't figure out the key. Once I was. Okay, I'll try it there. That should work. Now, unlike all of these other songs that I brought, this is the only one that is not sarcastic. It's just straight ahead truth. It's a description of the gold rush from the first-hand, eyewitness at the time it was happening. And he says he was a middle-class fellow from Pike. Grew up there, had everything he needed, he got an education, he was well-spoken, he had a lot of friends, and everything was going fine, and then he heard about this gold. And so he had to go out there. And look what happened to me. Oh, once, maybe it's a little high. Oh, once I was a right smart lad when I set out for Pike. Had a heap of good friends. I never got blue. I did whatever I liked. But look at me now, drenched in rags. These boots barely hide my toes. I sew another patch from an old corn sack to hide each new hole in my clothes. When I first started out from fighting and headed west, I was sure I'd find a big strike out here and have to pay for my pains. And I landed here in the mines, but now I only wish I'd stayed. This work and then the water's gonna kill me, and I'm sick of the pitiless pain. I've drifted, I've washed, I've pricked and dug, I've worked my flesh to the bone, but never have I had as much as a slug that I could consider my own. I'm sick of this country, I'm down at the heel, I'm dirty and ragged and cold. I burnt my ears, aged 10 years, trying to get some of this gold. But I'm going to labor and struggle and sweat till I make some kind of strike. And the minute I get a little money ahead, this old brother family's from Pike. And you'll see me there in a rocking chair and a brand new suit of clothes. I'll take my rest in the land of the best where the old Mississippi flows. Yeah, I guess I'll do the lousy miner too. It's not, it's the lousy miner, that's the title, but you find out as the song goes on, it's actually the lousy miner. Yeah, dude, I know. I've never even seen a louse. I mean, I've seen animal lice. I've seen bird lice on wild birds and stuff. But I've never seen a human louse, and we apparently have 2 species. But look at how we've cleaned up, right? Apparently they were everywhere back then. So this is really a song about, partly about lice. This is
Are there any happy songs?
yeah, there's one. Hold up. Not the next one. After that, there will be school. This is by Old Put. On top of that mountain. It's 4 long years since I reached this land, and full of rocks, in rocks and sand, and yet I'm poor when the truth is told. I'm a lousy miner, I'm a lousy miner, in search of shining gold, in search of shining gold. I've lived on swine till I grunt and squeal. No one can now know how my bowels feel, with flapjacks swimming in the bacon grease. I'm a lousy miner, I'm a lousy miner. When will my trouble cease? When will my trouble cease? I was crawling in lice, coming on the boat, had to throw away my good swallowtail coat. But now here they are, crawling up my back. I'm a lousy miner, I'm a lousy miner. A pile is all I lack, a pile is all I lack. My sweetheart, she's waiting for me till I return, don't you see? She's married now, so I am told. I'm a lousy miner, I'm a lousy miner, in search of shining gold, in search of shining gold. Oh, land of gold, you didn't need to see, and I intend in you my bones to leave. So farewell home, my friends, I'm a lousy miner, I'm a lousy miner, in search of shining gold, in search of shining gold. I told you my dad was a professor of history, and he was quite, he was, well, somewhere now, he had contacts all over the western states, and he was often contacted by other professors and scholars who had certain questions about, especially about the Spanish period of California history, which ran from the 1700s when the Spanish started sailing into this part of the world, and lasted until 1818, was it the Mexican Revolution?
46?
No.
1846?
Yes, 1846 was the end of the Mexican period. But the Mexican period followed the Spanish period. Anyway, my father was an expert in all of that. I shouldn't have to chop it up so much. And I told you earlier about the Chileans, how there were many Chileans that came up. Well, they weren't always unaccompanied because, let's see how do I tell this quickly. Chile freed the slaves in 1828, one of the first countries in the Western Hemisphere to do that. And they tried to make it work, but of course,
The slaves couldn't just walk out across the countryside and find something to do, some way to make a living, some kind of work, some food to survive on. So they couldn't, they didn't do that. They stayed close to where they'd been. Now they were free, they could come and go, they could do what they liked. But they became indentured because they were paid so little. And that happens throughout history all over the world where poor people are taken in as servants and not paid enough. And so they become indentured. That's called an indentured servant. And it's just one step above slavery. Well, anyway, when the news of the gold strike in California became known in Valparaiso and the other towns in that valley of Chile, there were, as I said before, there were plenty of strong young men with money who were eager to go up and have a look, see what they could make out of that gold rush. Well, they tended to bring some of their slaves along. They're servants. They're indentured servants. Peons, that's what they were called. It's the same word in Spanish and English. They were called peones. Well, my dad had, as I mentioned, a little number of contacts throughout the West. And one of his favorites was a fellow that taught over at, it was called San Mateo College, I think. You know about it? His name was Carlos Lopez. And he became something of a family friend because he loved Chilean folk music. And once I found out about it, I do too. That's good stuff, Chilean folk music. And so he wound up being a family friend. He would come over to our house and hang out, have dinner, and then spend the evening maybe singing songs. Well, one time he was a little more serious and he said, "I've got something I want to show you, Ed." That was my father's name. He said that he found a song from California that was made up out of Chileans. And I want to do it for you. And it's kind of, it's hard to sing because it's, well, you'll see. It's called La Yaquinita, which means simply the woman of the Yaqui people. The little woman of the Yaqui people, La Yaquinita. I'll translate it first. A lejas tierras voy a partir. To faraway lands I will go. Now this is the peon speaking. A lejas tierras voy a partir. Dejo mi vida, dejo mi hogar. I leave my life, I leave my home. ¿Sabe Dios cuándo voy a tornar? God knows when I'm going to go back. A pisar vuestras tierras, Yaquinita. Literally, to step thy lands again, Yaquinita. Ay chilao, mi china, Yaquinita. Oh, my friend, my woman, Yaquinita. Parece color de chuncaca. You are the color of chocolate candy. The last word in Quechua. And then he says it again, he says it again in Spanish. Ay chilao mi china barranqueña. Now it's woman of the cliffs. Parece color de confites. Spanish for chocolate. So it goes like this. A lejas tierras voy a partir. Dejo mi vida, dejo mi hogar. ¿Sabe Dios cuándo voy a tornar a pisar vuestras tierras, Yaquinita? Ay, chilao, mi china, Yaquinita, parece color de choncaca. Ay, chilao, mi china, barranqueña, parece color de confites. Wow.
So were the Chileans in Chile bars? Is that how it goes?
Yes, I'm not sure of the connection, but it certainly had to do with early part of 1849 when the Chileans were free. to look for Placerville wherever they wanted. The reason I say it that way is because when the great horde of Americans got here, half of them coming across the plains on their wagons, the other half coming by sea, having shipped all the way around in South America, from all the way to San Francisco. A lot of people, tens of thousands of Americans all at once, they didn't tolerate the Chileans. And they pushed them out if they wanted that land, if they wanted that gold claim. There was no law. There was no law until late 1850 when California became a state. I mean, there were remnants of the Mexican, or the Mexican law enforcement. What do they call it? I can't remember the word. But there wasn't much enforcement of any law. And so there was no protection for the Chileans. Most of them went back to San Francisco and did well in businesses there until they were ejected from San Francisco as well and had to go back to Chile. Good question. Well, I'm getting toward the end. Would you like to hear one sea chanty before I go to the last song? Okay, this one is mostly British, which makes sense because the British were bringing all those gold seekers from Europe. But there were American sea shanties too. A sea shanty, of course, is a work song. And typically in a work song, whoever's in charge of the work project, in this case it would be some kind of officer, I guess, on the ship, a mate of some kind. He would sing the first part, and then the workers, which were the sailors in this case, would sing the second part. And it was easy because the work was so routine. You know, they wouldn't even have to think about it. They had done it 1,000 times. Okay, we're gonna turn the mast around, or we're gonna bring that sail down. And they would sing as they went, just because it made the work more fun. You know? So this one's called Santiano. I'm sure you know what that refers to. President and other titles. Santa Anna, who tried to win the war with the United States, but lost. So he became somebody to sing about. Let's put it that way. So here's the call and the response. So we're sailing down the river from Liverpool, keep away to Santiago, around Cape Horn to Frisco Bay, all on the plains of Mexico. And the response. So heave her up and away we'll go, heave away Santiago. Heave her up and away we'll go, all on the plains of Mexico. She's a fast clipper ship and a good crew, heave away Santiago. And a down east Yankee with her captain too, all on the plains of Mexico. Back in the days of 49, heave away Santiago. Oh, those were the days of the good old times, all on the plains of Mexico. So heave her up and away we'll go, heave away Santiago. Heave her up and away we'll go, all on the plains of Mexico. Back in the days of 49, heave away Santiago. Oh, those were the days of the good old times, all on the plains of Mexico. Santiano was a good old man, heave away Santiano. Till he got in a war with your Uncle Sam, down in the plains of Mexico. So heave her up and away we'll go, heave away Santiano. Heave her up and away we'll go, all on the plains of Mexico. When I leave this ship I will settle down, heave away Santiano, and marry a girl called Sally Brown, all on the plains of Mexico. So heave her up and away we'll go, heave away Santiano. Heave her up and away we'll go, all on the plains
told you about Dorothy a little bit. Dorothy Hawkinson, she played the fiddle so well. She was enamored with a guy named Jay Unger. You guys get who Jay Unger is. He's a fiddle player. Oh, these are my friends over here. He's a great fiddle player, just a master and a composer. Maybe you've heard the tune, can't remember right now, but it's called The Lover's Waltz. Recognize it? That was the theme song for the first Ken Burns program, which was on the Civil War. That's where that came from. Anyway, Dorothy loved that tune so much. She came over to my house the day that program was aired. And we were both enthralled by the program, of course. Sitting on the couch with this TV that I never watched. I brought it out and set it on the coffee table, we were watching Ken Burns program. And Dorothy said something like, gosh, Dad, I'd love to hear Jay Unger play on that fiddle. Wouldn't it be great to be just sitting and watching television and hear your own music come out? And I said, you right there? Well, why not? So I went in the back room and I brought out a little cassette tape recorder, those things, half plastic. And I had one blank cassette. I brought a Safeway, I think, and a cheap microphone. Brought it all out, set it all together, and we recorded 2 songs. And I just put the cassette in an envelope and I mailed it to Ken Burns. And both of those songs were used years later in the program called The West. And it had a section on the gold rush. And this was one of the 2 songs that was on there. This is not properly a gold rush song. It was probably begun during the gold rush, but it was worked on as the years went by. It wasn't published till the 1870s, but there's mentions of it in the 1850s. So we just think it was underway. Here's something like what it came to. There you see old Tom Moore, a relic of bygone days. And a bummer or two they call me now, and what care I for praise? For my heart is filled with woe, I often grieve and pine. For the days of old, the days of gold, the days of 49. For the days of old, when we dug the gold, and the days of 49. Comrades then, a saucy set, they were rough, I must confess, but staunch and brave and true as steel, like hunters from the west. But just like many another fish, they now run out their line, and like good old kicks, they stood the kicks of the days of 49. There was Monty Pete, I'll never forget the luck he always had. He'd deal for you both night and day, or as long as you had a scan. One night a pistol laid him out, was his last day out at fire. It caught Pete sure and banged in the door in the days of 49. Then there was another chap from New Orleans, Big Reuben was his name. In the plaza there on the sardine box, he owned his faro game. And he dealt so fair that a millionaire he became in the course of time. Till death stepped in and called the turn of the days of 49. There was 10-ton built. He was one of the boys and he was always in for a game. He was always, he was never known to touch or ever spend a cent. My old brain, sorry. But poor old checks like all the rest to death did at last reside. And in his bloom he lit up the flume in the days of 49. There was Rackensack Jim, he could outroar a buffalo bull, I bet. He'd roar all day, he'd roar all night. He may be roaring yet. One night he fell in a prospect hole. It was a roar of bad design. And in his flume he went up, and in his, oh come on, in his flume he went up the flume in the days of 49. Full of all the comrades I had then, there's none left now to me. And the only thing I'm fitting for is a senator to be. And the people cry as I pass by, there goes a traveling sigh. That's old Tom Moore, he's a bummer sure from the days of 49. Oh, I miss the boys and all the noise and the gold that once was mine. In the days of old, the days of gold, the days of 49. In the days of old, the gold, the days of 49.
Whoa.
Thank you so much. Well, I just, yes, if you have some questions, that would be fun. Yes?
Well, I was wondering how early they started publishing all of this. Where did you get all of this wonderful stuff?
They were published as soon as the presses showed up. And the first one that I've ever seen was Old Put, John Stone. He had a book printed with all of the songs that he composed so far in 1853. Although he had a much bigger edition that was in 1857, and that's what you will sometimes see. That's the one the library here has. Anyway, that's the answer to your question. They were not known until they were found in books. It's an interesting question too, because thank you for coming. Have fun. I hate that. Yeah.
Interesting question.
Well, I wondered
Oh,
how
I
much
know what I
of
was
it was
gonna say.
passed down from oral history. In other words, how much of it did you hear from somebody else and not from a book?
Exactly. That's what I was going to do. We're going to thank you for clarifying. Yeah, typically you hear this song once. You know, you'd be a laborer, a gold miner. You'd go into a tent on Saturday night and you hear John Stone singing a song one time. That's not the way we do it nowadays. You know, you can hear a song 30, 50 times. And you don't even bother to listen to the words until you really care. But that time, you had to learn that song the first time. You may never hear it again. So the publishing part is an extremely important part. Because now, all of a sudden, that song is available all the time. Big difference. I don't quite know what else to say about it. Yes?
Hi, we met several years ago at Loma. I did the Old Put program at the World Gold Canning Championships.
Oh, I remember that. I was there. Yes, I remember you.
Alan. Anyway, I had one comment I wanted to make. Person brought up the Mexican, well, California became a state and women had property. And that was because it was it was grandfathered in from the Mexican territory. And what happened after that, and I love this part, Sam Brannon, who is thought to be the first millionaire in California, his wife divorced him. And when she did, he had to liquidate all of his real estate holdings. And he ended up down in San Diego and married a woman there and left the world penniless. Absolutely penniless. I just have one or two things about Old Put. He was said to put forth the paperwork for the miners that had legal needs. And so it was putting those papers forth that got him the name Old Put, as I understand it.
Golly, I've wondered about that for 40 years.
And the last thing is, of course, Old Put came here for the gold, and he ended up finding a like 450-pound piece of quartz with a gold vein. It netted him about either $25,000 or $35,000. And he spent it all. He hung out in San Francisco, loved the pool halls and the liquor establishments. Spent it all and had to find another way to support himself. So he did the legal paper thing, and he started doing the music.
Now we know about Old Put.
Thank you for sharing
Thank you
that.
very much.
I was going to mention that he's buried up at Greenwood Cemetery, and a group of people bought him a headstone. It says right on there who he is. So it's John Stone, Old Put.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I can't remember if it says Old Put or John Stone or both.
Just Johnstone.
John Stone. Yeah, it's right there in the Greenwood Cemetery.
I live in Greenwood.
Leave some flowers.
How you do? Well, I guess I'll kind of wind this up. I did want to say thank you for listening. Thank you for your appreciation. I like these songs partly because they're so familiar in a way. I mean, the sarcasm, the jokes, the poking fun. It doesn't sound like something from 1849. It sounds like something from a year and a half ago. And that's what I like about history, is that it brings people together in a way. It's easy enough for us to make friends and to understand each other and learn about another person when we're in this present time. But memory and history, well, history is memory. History is the memory of the human race. And you can go back 1,000 years and you can find some writing about some guy who did such and such, and you go, wow, it's just like that now. I recognize that. And I recognize that in these songs. Some of these satirical poking fun at somebody else because of the way he does that. I know that guy. You know what I mean? And that kind of knowledge is refreshing, and I think it has some power. That's the beauty of history, because it's a memory, as I said. And a memory is a thing you depend upon to tell you what works well and what doesn't. And that's why I titled this program "History Through Music," because you can go back and listen to this music and study it a little bit. And, oh man, it's kind of refreshing because it brings the centuries together and makes us feel like one species, which is what we are. We're a species of beings who understand each other. Thank you for coming.